Hey, what's up, guys? I have another reaction. In this part, I have the serial killers, the DC case of a sniper, a teen assassin who killed 17 people.
On anyone's mind would be why. Why would anyone target a child with that amount of firepower? But Iran Brown's aunt knew better. There was no method to this madness. Her nephew was just another unfortunate yet random victim of a coordinated killing spree that was ravaging the Washington
That case was about
metropolitan
a
area.
sniper.
And as the police would rightfully fear, her sweet nephew wouldn't be the last.
Those are the people, the 17 people that he killed. He was only a teenager.
And as the police
Like what?
would rightfully fear, her sweet nephew wouldn't be the last. Welcome back to Twisted Minds. My name is James, and today we are going to deep dive into the cold and dreadful violent case of the DC snipers. From a sinister perspective, the events of the DC sniper case couldn't be more timely. In the year 2002, Americans were still recovering from both the shock of 9/11 and the anthrax attacks. So, when some unknown snipers started gunning people at random on the streets of DC in that same year, it was as if someone
Wasn't the same year like 9/11? Imagine, like the planes crash because of terrorists. And then on the same year, you get a serial killer like with a sniper.
had revived a very familiar fear. Our case begins in Montgomery County, a peaceful suburban town just north of Washington, D.C. The county was known for its affluent residents, serene and safe environment, the ideal bubble for raising kids in an increasingly violent America. However, on the 2nd of October 2002, that bubble would burst. At around 7:41 a.m., a family man named James Martin was getting groceries for his wife and an 11-year-old son when a high-caliber bullet ripped through his chest. He died within minutes. At the time of the shooting, the police were confused. This was not the kind of crime one would expect in a neighborhood like theirs. It had never happened in the county before, and this would be an unexpected first. The police combed the area for bullet casings, but they didn't find anything. No evidence, no clues, just questions. On the 3rd of October, while police were still pondering the killing of the day before, an emergency call came out that cut the Montgomery Police Department where it hurt. A woman had spotted her neighbor bleeding on his lawn next to his lawnmower. The victim was Sonny Buchanan, and he was the son of former Montgomery County police officer. The woman thought it was the lawnmower that had cut him, but when paramedics arrived, they quickly realized that it was far from a domestic incident. Like James Martin from the day before, Sonny Buchanan had also been shot in the chest, and by the time he got to the emergency room, his body was completely drained of blood. At this point, the situation was putting the police on edge. The case was escalating a little too quickly for them to catch up. Less than an hour later, at around 8:12 a.m., another emergency call came in. This time, it was a 54-year-old taxi driver named Prem Kumar Waklekar. Prem was pumping gas when a bullet tore through his chest, also killing him. Two brutal murders in under an hour. The PD was in an uproar.
Was
And
on
yet-
the same spot. And almost the same hour, like 24 hours.
Murders in under an hour. The PD was in an uproar. And yet, the killings were not even done for the morning. As the police rushed to the site of that scene, with just 30 minutes from the last murder, another call came in. This time, it was Sarah Ramos, a 34-year-old babysitter. She was waiting at a bus stop on a bench reading a book when a bullet shattered her skull and exited through her neck. Someone was targeting citizens and they didn't know who or why. Radio traffic
And
toward
like the assassin doesn't have like patterns, like only a woman, only man, only child. He just kill like with no prejudice.
through airwaves as police rushed to
It doesn't care about race or if you're a woman, man, child. He just kill you.
the scenes of the crime. If they were confused and concerned before, now they were getting pretty desperate. In just 2 hours, 3 brutal murders had occurred, and they were clueless as the relatives of targeted citizens had begun demanding answers. And yet, the killings were still not over. A little over an hour later, at exactly 9:58 a.m., a 25-year-old lady, Lori Ann Lewis Rivera, was vacuuming Cheerios from her vehicle at a Shell petrol station when a bullet also took her life. For the first time ever, the suburb was witnessing when a bullet vacuuming Cheerios from her vehicle at a Shell petrol station when a bullet also took her life. For the first time ever, the suburb was witnessing carnage, unlike anything
It was one like a neighborhood like calm, with the suburbs like a calm part of the city.
they had ever seen before. As word spread amongst residents, so did the fear. Later that night, at around 9:30 p.m., the killer took out their final victim for the day, Pascal Charlotte, a 72-year-old retired carpenter who was taking a stroll on Georgia Avenue at Kalmia Road in Washington, D.C. A county that had been used to witnessing violence on a TV screen now had it served violently to them on their doorstep. After the end of an unbelievably bloody day, the police began to establish their findings. All the shootings happened so far had happened within a 25-kilometer radius. All victims had been killed
in
by a
Washington,
single high-caliber bullet,
DC.
which indicated that the killer was a sniper, and this sniper was experienced and
They
tied.
knew he was a sniper because of the bullets.
He would strike, then vanish into thin air, leaving no clue behind. With the victims, there was no connection. While the killings were coordinated, it still appeared random. There was no discrimination amongst the victims that would suggest a biased execution. Pascal was black and elderly. Lori Ann Lewis was both young and white. Both completely unrelated and
Black,
both sharing no
white,
ties.
Indian.
It doesn't get more random than that. It was like the sniper was playing the lottery with lives. Those that were murdered were just at the wrong place at the wrong time. Also, these victims were not robbed, which also made the motive of the sniper more obscure. Still, police deployed SWAT teams into the community. Undercover cops were sent into areas where the violence had occurred and its surrounding.
Imagine staying like calm, going to work, house, going to the shopping and get sniped. For no reason. Just because you want to kill it.
Areas. The police also worked with the best snipers to determine how this killer was operating. How did the killer wreak those attacks undetected? It was the suburbs, so there were no woods in any of the kill spots and no tall buildings that they could have used to shoot from. It was during these debates amongst themselves that the police realized that the killer might be in a vehicle. A witness had spoken of a white panel truck
How do you know
that the
you can't be
killer.
in
There were
there?
no woods in any of the kill spots and no tall buildings that they
How
could
they're
have
not
used
tall
to shoot
buildings,
from.
like
It was during
sniper.
these debates amongst themselves that
But-
the police realized that the killer
But trying to snipe on a moving car isn't like hard. Only if it like has like help, maybe.
might be in a vehicle. A witness had spoken of a white panel truck in the area when the fourth victim was killed. According to the witness, after Sarah Ramos got a bullet through the head, they saw a
head.
white panel pickup truck leaving the vicinity. Immediately, the police kicked into action and began searching every white van and every white panel pickup truck they could find. As police searched for the van, the 5 bodies were taken in for autopsy. The community was paralyzed with fear. In less than 48 hours, 6 innocent people had been killed, and yet the police had no suspects.
48, like 2 days, 6 killed. bro.
No motive, and no clues.
No clues,
However,
no
the
nothing.
worst feeling was the fact that every resident felt like they could be the next
He's like a
victim to suffer
professional.
the sniper's bullet. The Montgomery County Police Chief, Charles Moose, assigned his most qualified detective, Barney Forsythe, to lead the investigation. Their first major decision was to share as much information they could with the public. Schools went into lockdown, armed guards patrolled the vicinity, and the first clues presented itself. The bullets were traced to a long-range rifle, a weapon like a Bushmaster. Now, Bushmasters are the kind of military rifles that are designed for one specific purpose. In the hands of anyone, even the untrained, the weapon could be lethal. After the trajectory analysis came in, it confirmed the police's earlier fears. The bullet was coming from someone on the ground, not from any rooftops or elevated pedestal. The person was mobile, and this led to the next suspicion.
Oh, you know, from the trajectory of the bullet, that like they got killed from someone in the ground.
There were two individuals involved in this mindless mayhem. When the community caught wind of the fact that an armed sniper was hiding in a vehicle, the residents of Washington entered into a state of panic. The press didn't help either. There were speculations in the paper, on the news, and they were mostly pointing in one direction: the infamous Al-Qaeda. It seemed like a convenient explanation, and there was no way to confirm it,
They tried to blame Bin Laden.
but that didn't stop the press from stoking fear. The next day, October 4th, the sniper changed tactics and moved south of Washington. The victim of the day was Caroline Sewell, a 43-year-old homemaker. She was loading packages into her minivan in the parking lot of Michael's Craft Store in Fredericksburg, Virginia, when the cold bullet of the deranged sniper tore through her abdomen. As she lied on the floor bleeding, she prayed that she would live for her two children. Thankfully, she survived. This
she
marked the
survived.
first survivor of the October attacks. Once again, the police were left with nothing. The criminals had once again vanished. Detectives were mystified. No physical description, no good eyewitnesses. It was like they were chasing a ghost. It was at this junction that Police Chief Moose decided to throw all of his weight on the public. He called out to them for help. A tip line was released, and immediately it was overwhelmed by calls.
The thing I noticed, like the sniper was like a military weapon.
Some people were convinced that they had seen something related
How did he get it? Like from the street?
to the sniper, and others had ideas of how to catch the criminals.
But like
At
military
one
weapon.
point, the police department received over 100,000 tips. Detectives began working around the clock, trying to follow every
Trace.
worthwhile lead. They noticed that the attacks were close to roadways, strip malls, and certain stores. They also noticed that the killer or killers were very familiar with the traffic patterns in the area. After studying these movements closely, the police devised a method for trapping the sniper. They called it the concentric circle plan, and it would involve the immediate deployment of a response team at the ring of an emergency call. Once the emergency call comes in, the police team would create a trap consisting of a series of widening circles around whatever area the shooting happened. They would roadblock every exit and floor in the premise with plainclothes operatives. In the first 2 days, the shootings had been contained within the Montgomery axes. However, with the killing in Virginia, the radius had expanded. The killer could be anywhere. There was a debate about whether schools should remain open or not. So far, no child had been targeted by the sniper, so it was decided that schools would remain open, but kids would remain indoors. There would be no recess. The authorities believed this would keep the kids safe.